Hi, this is Kathy McAllister of Teawife Creations. Today we're going to be making this absolutely adorable floppy-eared bunny that's a shelf sitter. I'll be covering all the steps in this video. Okay, so this is the laser cut bunny that's in the kit, and you can see he or she has little paws as well. And we're going to be putting the decorative paper on the bunny and also on the paws. And then you have the other pieces of the paw, and you also have the nose. So these little pieces are all going to be painted. And then you also are receiving the stand. So the original stand is 2 pieces, which are these they have the cutouts in them. So the bunny will go in there. And remember, you will have this decorative paper on it, so it will be a little bit snugger in there as well. But those are the pieces that come with the kit. And I went ahead and I cut an additional piece for you, which is this piece here that's got the engraved mark, because I kind of liked having the stand finished, so it's finished at the bottom as opposed to open, so it's actually finished. And the tab of the bunny kind of slots into this engraved piece, so it kind of looks like that instead. And you're going to be gluing these pieces together. We're going to go through that on this video. But it's up to you. You can do it as the original pattern calls for, where you just have 2 pieces, or you can finish it off with 3 pieces. It is up to you. You have a choice. All right, so the kit you purchased comes with designer paper. It may be this, it may be a different paper, but you've bought whatever pattern that you want. And so you have that. Plus you have the paper to cover the paws. And you need to make sure, you need to double check when you do this, that you're putting the right piece of paper on the right paw. So for instance, I believe that's the one that goes on that. If you tried to use this one, well, you see that it doesn't fit on there. So this has got to go on that one, and this one's got to go on that one. So that's a perfect fit. So don't get ready to glue them together and accidentally glue the wrong one on the wrong paw. So just double check you've got them the correct way. So I've done them this way for you. And then you will be painting these little pieces that go on after. So like so. But I just want to show you how that was put together. Okay, so in this video, I've chosen to use Vintage Pink as my darker tone, along with the medium tone is Cotton Candy, and then the lighter tone I used was Baby Blush. And these are Deco Art products, but you can use whatever colors, products you want. But I just kind of want to give you a feeling of how these colors work together and what some of your other options could be. So that's the Vintage Pink. And then this is the medium tone. This is the Cotton Candy. And then this is the lighter tone, Baby Blush. So you can see how those 3 colors work together. Now, a lot of people, when they're doing bunnies, they like to use cactus flower. And cactus flower works very well as the slightly darker tone. You can see there's just a little bit more darkness in the Vintage Pink. But cactus flower and the Cotton Candy and the Baby Blush, the 3 of those would work together just as well as with the Vintage Pink. So it's just kind of what you have on hand. And then if you don't have cactus flower or Vintage Pink, but you happen to have melon, that's another one. It just has a little bit more, slightly more orange tone to it. So on my demonstration piece, I went ahead and painted vintage pink onto the back of the bunny. You can use whatever color you'd like on the back, including perhaps you just want it to be brown, or maybe you want it to be the natural color of the MDF. But I have used vintage pink, and this is a good time to paint the back of your floppy eared bunny piece. When I did my original demonstration piece, I did the painting after I applied the designer paper, and I found that was probably not the best time to do it because I started to get paint onto the edges of my decoupage paper. So I do recommend that you paint the back of your bunny before you apply the designer paper. This is also a good time to go ahead and paint the edges, those charred edges around the bunny piece. You can use a brush to apply the paint or a sponge stick and use whatever color you're using on the back of the bunny to do the edges. So I'm going to show you how to do shading around this designer paper. I'm going to use burnt umber, but you can use any brown acrylic that you have that you can shade with. And I'm also using an angled brush. There is an easier way to do this. If you don't like doing shading, I'm going to show you how you can achieve a similar effect using sponges. I'll show you that later in the video. But for now, this is how you shade. So you can see the way I take the angled brush and I dip the toe of it into the paint. And then I condition it on my palette paper to work it into the edges of the toe of the brush. I bring it over to the designer paper and I work along the edge to shade. And then I dip the brush back into the water. I dry it off slightly and I repeat the process, dipping the toe into the brown acrylic, conditioning it onto the palette paper, bringing it over to my designer paper and shading along the edge. Now we are going to adhere the designer paper onto the bunny cutout. I'm using Thin Bar Soft Matte Gel, which is a wonderful adhesive for this project because it dries permanently, but it also gives you plenty of work time to position the paper properly into its place. So you're going to use a soft flat brush to first apply a thin coat of the soft matte gel to the front of the bunny piece. And then you're going to apply another thin coat to the paper. So that gives both of the pieces a bit of adhesive so that they can stick to one another. You're going to slide the paper as needed into position until all the little edges line up. But be sure to do this gently. You don't want to tear the paper. So once you have it down and you have it in place and it's all kind of lined up, you can use a popsicle stick or a bone folder or an old credit card to gently go across the paper and make sure you have all the little bubbles out. Now you're going to use the soft matte gel to adhere the paw paper onto the wood paw pieces, the same way that you did with the bunny piece. So now we're going to use the cotton candy and a sponge stick to color all the little bits, the paw bits and the nose. You want to make sure once you've done 2 coats of cotton candy on these paw bits and nose, you're going to come back with the vintage pink and a sponge or a sponge stick, and we're going to do some shading, and also we're going to cover up the charred edges around all these little pieces. So you'll be using vintage pink and a sponge or a sponge stick. If you prefer, you can also use something like cactus flower or one of the other colors that you might After the paws are dry, you can use some sandpaper and you can distress around the edges, and you'll see that it leaves like a little white edge of the paper. can come along with a sponge stick and some burnt umber or some other brown acrylic that you might have. And you can go in and further distress the paws and do a little bit of shading. So this is the area where I was saying if you didn't want to shade with a brush, this is a perfect time to shade with a sponge or a sponge stick. It's really easy to do this. While you still have some of the burnt umber on your sponge stick, this would be a good time to add just a light amount around the edges of the paw bits and the nose, just to give it a tiny bit of a shade. I did a bit of dry brushing on the paw pads and also on the nose. After I shaded, I wanted it to be a little bit more smooth and seamless, so I started with cotton candy and a dry brush, very dry brush, and I highlighted inside the area of the pads. I didn't want to completely get rid of all the shading, but I kind of want to smooth it out. And then once that dried, I used baby blush. I came back again with a very dry brush, just to create little highlights in the center part of the little paw pads and the nose. And finally, I used titanium white to highlight in the middle of all of these pieces. Once again, you're using a very dry brush, so you're wiping off quite a bit of the paint onto a napkin, and then coming back into the center of the piece and highlighting with the white. And that should be pretty light, and make sure your brush is very dry. So I'm kind of weird. I absolutely love shading and floating with an angled brush. I decided to go ahead and shade the back of the bunny with some burnt umber, and I used an angle brush. This is very optional. You don't have to do this. It just made me happy. So grab your glue and you're going to stick all the little paw pieces onto the main paw. I use something called Art Glitter Designer Dries Clear Adhesive, but you can use whatever glue that you prefer that's going to have a nice permanent stick. You're also ready to stick the paws onto the bunny body. And then after you do that, you can stick the nose on as well. And remember, on the nose, you can either put it straight on, or maybe you want to do it a little at a quirky angle. So it's up to you, however you want to stick the paws and the nose onto the bunny. Particular pattern, that's more attractive. Some of them you can flip them if you prefer the other side, but so you're going to be applying the soft matte gel to the wood first, and then to the reverse side of the paper, and stick it on, smooth it out, clean it up, get out any bubbles, and allow that to dry. Once this piece has dried, you can go ahead and shade it. And I'm using the angled brush to shade it with burnt umber. You can use a sponge, as we demonstrated earlier, whichever method you prefer, to just put a little bit of shading around the stand top to give it just a bit of dimension. Use some black acrylic paint, or you can use an acrylic paint marker to put the eyes on the bunny. I also put eyebrows on the bunny. Now you're going to begin gluing the three pieces of the stand together, starting with the top piece and the middle piece. Make sure that those are all lined up and dried before you add the third piece. And again, remember, the third piece is optional. You don't have to use it. It just helps to finish the piece, I think. The other thing you would want to do is, before doing the third bottom piece, you may want to put a bit of brown paint on that piece, or you can leave it natural. That's up to you. Once you have assembled the stand, the three pieces of the stand, or two pieces, depending on how you chose to do it, and the glue is dried, you can go ahead and put the bunny into the stand and glue her into place. Now, sometimes I like, in my mixed media pieces, to finish off things with other embellishments, it kind of helps to hide like the seam line where the bunny slots into the stand. And so I've given you some flowers that you can use. I also recommend you can do glitter or beads or other materials with the flowers if you want. So this is how I kind of start laying out the pieces and the embellishments to see how it's going to look. So you can take any kind of paper flower and add a little bit of highlight to it or shading to it simply by using something like a distressing pad, or you can also use paint. So for instance, these flowers are kind of plain, but it's pretty easy to change them up. You just add a little bit of a duotone to them so that they're not just flat in one color. So that's the way it looks when you use a pad. But you can also touch them with a little bit of paint. Use paint on a brush and color them that way. These particular Prima flowers have little wires on them, and for this purpose you don't need the wires, so all you need to do is cut them off with wire cutters. It's very easy to snip the pieces off. Now your bunny is pretty much finished. You will have glued all the pieces together and added in your embellishments, whatever you wanted at the base, or you could have left it blank. But she is done. And you can see I have the ribbon tied on. You can use one or two pieces. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed sharing this with you. If you have any questions, be sure to give me a holler. Thank you. Bye-bye.